Welcome to the Successful Home Inspector Podcast, where we discuss everything you need to know about home inspection from A to Z. Brought to you by Preston Sandlin and Home Inspection Carolina. We're here to share some success stories and some not so successful stories. Some things we can all learn from, and maybe, just maybe, we can help each other and raise the profession. So sit back, turn up the volume, and enjoy. Now, here's your host of the Successful Home Inspector Podcast, Preston Sandlin.
I always like to have guaranteed inspections. Well, now you can with InspectNewHomes.com. Owned and operated by the Home Inspector team. The only website that's designed for new builders and home inspectors to collaborate and work together. It's a grading system that grades new homes to increase the quality product of their homes. Bring the new builder something they've never had before. Quality inspection by a licensed home inspector at InspectNewHomes.com.
All right, listeners. Well, I have a special treat for you here. I have just one of the nicest guys and just nicest people that you'll ever meet. I have Todd Whiting here from the Boston, Massachusetts area. How you doing this morning, Todd?
I am doing great, Preston. Thanks for having me on the podcast today.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And Todd is taking a break. He just got hit by a massive snowstorm, according to the weatherman, but he says it's just a dusting. It was only 6 inches. So did you get all the snow and everything off the driveway this morning, Todd?
Yeah, I was up at about 5 o'clock, got the snowblower running, got everything that I needed to do done. For my estimation, this was a fizzle. They were calling for double the snow.
Yeah, they told us 6 to 9 inches, and we got a dusting. I mean, it looks a little more than a frost, but yep. That's about it. Well, Todd, tell us a little bit more about you. We'd like to get to know you personally, and how'd you get into the home inspection business, and where'd you come from?
Well, I started my home inspection business roughly about 18 years ago, almost 19 years ago, to be honest. I was a franchisee of Allstate Home Inspection Household Environmental Testing.
Okay.
And we're located, my office and training center is located in beautiful downtown Canton, Massachusetts, and I have another office in downtown Boston at 265 Franklin Street. And that's just for conferences and such. Where I came from, I spent the first 22 years of my life working as a produce manager for Demoulas Supermarkets up here in Massachusetts, one of the best supermarket chains you could ever work for. They treated their employees well, even though you worked a lot of hours. They paid them well, and they had a great emphasis on customer service. And a lot of how I treat customer service I learned from working at that company. And it was after being there when I was 38, I decided it was time to try something new. 22 years was going to be a career, and I looked into a variety of things and looked at my background and decided this would be it for me, buying a home inspection franchise and getting the training.
Awesome. So that's how you started. I mean, you bought the franchise, and that's, you got all your training within the franchise, or did you go to one of the schools? Or
I mean, after I bought the franchise, I did a lot of outside education. I was the first home inspector in Massachusetts to become certified as a mold inspector through the Indoor Environmental Standards Organization. I took a course at Northeastern University. It was a 2-semester course on inspecting commercial properties. So even though I bought a franchise so that I would have the business support and the training support, I did a lot of outside continuing education as well.
Oh, cool. Well, Todd, so tell us roughly how long have you been doing inspections, and tell us about some of the changes you've seen.
I did my first inspection in April of 1998, and that was done on a 14-page NCR form.
Carbon. The carbon ones that you split
apart.
Yeah,
the carbonless forms, and easy to do, delivered right at the end of the inspection, and callbacks were astronomical because even though I understood what was in it, sometimes the clients struggled with it. So that's probably the biggest change I've seen. And even though you can still hire companies that will provide you an NCR report right at the end of the inspection, that's not the norm. The advent of digital cameras made the process of picture taking for the home inspection easy. People started taking, cover shots and maybe a dozen pictures of the property of the most serious conditions, and now you'll see home inspectors talking about taking anywhere from 100 to 400 pictures during the course of an inspection. Wow.
Todd, I have to tell you, we use those NCR forms and or a version of them, and this is back, I started in the mid-'90s, and actually at the time took the Polaroid. You remember the instant? It was like
I had one.
10 pictures. So then I would write on the form, I would say, see picture 2, and then I would write right on the Polaroid, number 2. And I mean, you had to be real selective because it was $1 a picture. And so then I put them in the notebook, and then I put those Polaroids in the little pocket of the notebook, the 3-ring binder notebook.
Right, absolutely.
And, man, now that seems so archaic. But honestly, I can remember that like it was yesterday. I mean, I guess it was 20 years ago, but it didn't seem that long ago.
No.
And from there we went to those digital Mavicas with a disc that you put in. That I still have mine. That thing's like, this thing weighs like 10 pounds. But at the time, man, that was like the Jetsons or something,
Yeah.
So we've come a long way.
When I first started as a home inspector, I was also doing work as a real estate appraiser. And it was the same thing. You'd take the picture, you'd tape it into the report, you'd bring the report to a copier, a copy company, and they'd have them make several copies with the pictures in it, so you'd have the pictures would actually be inserted in the report.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and so the change, the ease and simplicity of a digital camera is probably the biggest change. And now there's a lot of mission creep going on, people bringing things in that allow them to do so many other things, but in many cases it brings them up way above and beyond the expectation of what a home inspection is.
Right.
And some of them are good things. Thermal imaging cameras used properly are a great tool.
Right.
I know that you're using drones in some of your inspections and some of the things you're doing in your company. I haven't moved up to drones yet. The weather up here isn't conducive to the use of drones.
Right.
And now they're talking about robot tractors or robot cars, remote control cars to go into crawl spaces to try and get a better look at crawl spaces.
Right.
So there's been an awful lot of changes and advancement in what we're doing.
Yeah, I haven't gone to the robot yet. I've been watching those. The Crawlbot, and I think Scott Baker has one. I'm really interested. The only thing that worries me about that, though, is, I would be sending this thing to some area that I can't go or I can't get. And now if it gets stuck, and this thing is like, $2,000. And remember, I sent it somewhere where I couldn't go to begin with.
Kind of like a drone in a tree.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, we're going to have to cut a hole in the floor. That thing's $2,000. I got to get that thing. So anyway, cool. Well, Todd, tell us how many, I'm going to combine these two questions. How many inspectors do you have? And was it hard to hire the first one? Because I know a lot of our listeners struggle with that. Take us there. Take us back there. What was it like hiring that first one?
Well, I actually have 2 inspectors on staff.
Okay.
The first one I have that actually worked out was very easy to hire. But she was very easy to hire because the very first 3 that I tried to hire were difficult.
Okay.
going through the process of figuring out how to interview people, how to figure out if a person is the right person, can be very difficult. There are tools out there to use, but you need to know how to use them. Trying to determine is somebody going to be able to present the information that they're gathering.
Right.
Is difficult. And being up in a licensing state, we have additional requirements where you're not allowed to do inspections without the license. You have to do 75 hours of classroom before you can start out, and then you have to do 25 inspections under the direct supervision and then another 100 inspections under indirect supervision. That adds to difficulty as well. The first inspector I hired, he had all of the tools. Great guy, great personality, could identify a defect and all of the conditions in a home very quickly, very easily, but he couldn't express that information to people. He couldn't talk to people. And trying to figure that out when you're talking to somebody in a job interview where they've had a chance to rehearse is difficult. Then the second two people I hired two people that actually came to me that I knew that were said they wanted to become home inspectors. Both of them had become recently unemployed and decided that they wanted to try the home inspection field. Well, the first one lasted 7 days.
Okay.
And he decided that after taking the course and taking some training with me, that home inspection wasn't his passion. And decided to continue to collect his unemployment.
All right.
And the second one was very similar. After 10 days, he just decided that the schedule was too rigorous and that he could, at that particular moment in his time, make more money on unemployment than he could doing the training to become a home inspector. He didn't have his eye on the prize of being able to get to that full fee split and being a full-time inspector doing 300 to 400 inspections a year.
Right. You know, I have people, and I'm sure this happens to you, and probably most of the listeners, if you do it a while, contact you all the time. I'm interested in being a home inspector. How do you, and I'll direct them to, we have a state licensing thing here too that's like 120 class hours, 80 in the field, and I'll direct them to the websites and whatnot. And most of the time, I never hear from them again. once they realize what's involved, I mean, I would say about 1 out of 30 maybe will call me later and say, I'm halfway through, but most of them I never hear from again. They're all excited until they realize, the time, money, and effort it's going to take. They just, like you said, decide that, it's not their passion anymore.
Right. So, and the other thing I face up here in the Northeast is we're in the most expensive place to live in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the techniques that work in other parts of the country don't work here.
Right.
So with 3 failures, I changed my hiring process. I stopped really looking for home inspectors on ZipRecruiter. I stopped looking for them on Indeed. And I've started going directly to the home inspection schools that are here, the AHIT schools, the schools at some of the continuing education courses at the high schools and the community colleges.
Okay.
And I go in and I generally give it an hour to sit and talk with the people and explain to them what I have to offer. I also had to change the process from the way I pay home inspectors. I know that in many parts of the country, trainee home inspectors don't get paid for the first couple of weeks until they're out doing home inspections on their own.
Right.
And I can't ask somebody to do that up here.
I pay mine. Not a whole lot, but
I pay mine. I came to the conclusion I wanted to control their time. So
right.
I pay my trainees for up until they get their associate's license, $500 a week.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And then when they get their associates, but until they complete my training program, they'll get paid $750 a week.
Oh, wow.
And then when they start out on their own but don't have their full license, they'll start at 20% of the inspection fee. And then when they've completed the full 125 inspections, they'll move up to the 30%.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we pay ours the same thing because I can't, a lot of these guys are changing, professions, and they got a wife and kid. I mean, they've got to make something.
They've got both.
Yeah, and I know that, there's probably people listening and people I've seen, I'm not paying them, blah, blah, blah. Well, what if they quit on you? And what if they don't work out? And I'm like, it happens. It absolutely happens. And I've been wrong about a lot of guys, but I've been right about some. I mean, that's just cost of doing business to me.
Well, my objective is to make it more desirable to not go out on their own.
Right.
I'm going to spend an awful lot of money, invest an awful lot of money and time on people, and I want them to think that why would I go out on my own when I can make this here? Yes, I could get the entire fee if I go out on my own, but then I'm going to be doing all the other things as well that Todd's doing. Yeah,
the chasing people down that don't pay, the administrative part, the constant rescheduling because they're not ready. Go ahead, Todd.
And all of my employees are W-2 employees. I do not have 1099 employees because I'm in control of their time. I'm telling them what to do. I'm telling them what to wear. I'm telling them where to be and when to be there. They're my employees. They're not subcontractors. Sure. And I don't want them to think like a subcontractor. I want them to think like an employee.
Sure. The other thing is I always said that I wanted to build my company as a place where I would want to work.
Right.
That was the whole thing for me because I worked for somewhere, and there were some things I liked about it and things I didn't like about it. But I said, I want to build a place where, if I could quit and work for me, I would.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Well, Todd, tell me about, do you have a success quote you could share with us in a time that quote may have applied to you?
Success. I actually have two quotes. One of them is just a short, sort of funny quote, and the other one is my favorite poem.
Okay.
So the first quote is, "We are all self-made men, but only the successful brag about it." I don't know who it came from. It's something my brother once told me, and it's stuck with me ever since. But my favorite poem is by Marianne Williamson.
Oh, I know where you're going.
Yeah, it's our deepest fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome.
I find that working with me every day of the week, every day of my life, but especially when I have to go in and do a presentation at a real estate office or do a seminar or any time I have to speak in front of people. Every time I have to go out and do a home inspection and make that presentation, that I have to put myself out there. I have to go out of my comfort zone and be that person so that others will do the same thing.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I try to tell my wife like the same thing because, I'm out there, man. I don't care about getting in front of people, but she is so shy, so certain. She doesn't want to. I'm like, I couldn't, like, cause sometimes, you get jammed up and like, could you go make this presentation for me? And, and she would die before she would get in front of people. And I'm just like, honey, you're bringing them food. They're going to like you. Don't be small. I mean, and she taught school for, 15 years. My goodness, if you could get in front of, several 8-year-olds, to me, that would be more terrifying than getting in front of them. I mean, don't play small. Don't play small. You're not, so anyway, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. But so I have this posted in my office. I have it on my Facebook page. I have it everywhere. It's a big part of who I am. I used to make my softball players read it because even in the wonderful world of softball and athletes, they're sometimes afraid to stand out. They're sometimes afraid to be that person.
Right. Well, and I think and not to get too far, off, but I think I've been to, did you go to Inspector Fuel? I can't remember if you went or not. There was a guy.
I just go to the Savvy Inspector events. I don't have the time to go to all of the seminars or all of the business things that are out there to help grow a home inspection business. So I go to a focused event, and that's about it.
Sure. Well, the only reason I said it is I remember that there was a guy there who divided up the room, and I've been to things like this before, but it was kind of like, it was like you divided up into quadrants. And if you were, I think the question was kind of along the lines of, are you informal dominant? Are you an informal dominant personality? And that's actually the quadrant I was in. And then there was like formal dominant, and then what would be the other variation of that? Formal non-dominant, and non-dominant non-formal in the quadrants. And got everybody, who described, and my wife was obviously in one of the other one, non-dominant, and I think it might have to do with the personality type. So it's very hard for her to come, but I think that has a lot to do with what you're saying here, where you've got to get, that's your comfort zone. You've got to get out of your comfort zone to shine at times, make it different. That's where the magic happens, as they used to say, so to speak.
I'm sure you're familiar with the right path.
Yep.
Path 4, Path 6. And when I was doing it for my employees, I also did it for myself. And one of the things I found out about myself and the introvert, extrovert, I am exactly in the middle.
Okay.
So I'm able to put myself out there and be out with people, but it takes time to recover after being in a large group of people.
Wears you out.
But what I've done is, because I'm right there in the middle, I do have to push to the extroverted side, and I generally do that through humor. You do it with pants, I do it with humor.
I hear you, man. I know that it's funny, like, around Christmas and stuff, like, we did a lot of family stuff, or, we went out to places just with the family, and I'm wearing regular pants, and I'll see realtors, they're like, who are you? They're like, I didn't realize you had regular pants. I was like, yeah, my family's not too big on me wearing them when we go out to eat. They, especially my teenage daughters.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Todd, I'm going to combine these next two questions. Originally, I said, what do you do in your spare time? But what I've come to find out after several interviews is that a lot of home inspectors who own their own business do not have much spare time. But
I can actually answer that question quite easily.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of the things I do is give back to the community. When I first started out in the home inspection business, I did a lot of softball coaching. I coached everything from kindergarten t-ball to a college showcase softball team, where I helped girls that wanted to play softball in college get into college to play softball. One of my greatest joys in life is the fact that my two youngest daughters are both college softball players. My middle daughter was a 2-year captain at Pittsburgh State University here in Massachusetts.
Oh, wow. That is a big deal.
And she's in the top 10 of most of the pitching records in their record book there.
Is that fast pitch, kind of like underhand fast pitch deal?
Yes. Both my daughters were pitchers, both threw about 60-plus miles an hour. My
Nice.
youngest daughter took a couple years off from softball because she took a line drive off the face in her senior year in high school. So in addition to that, I belong to I'm the chairman of the administrative committee at my church. I'm on the executive board at my church. I'm being inducted into Rotary tomorrow night.
Nice.
I belong to the Plymouth and South Shore Association of Realtors, and I'm on their community service subcommittee. I do a lot of go-on mission trips with my church. I've been out to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation to help work there, spent a week building outhouses, building steps and stoops, bunk beds, putting trailer skirts around trailers down in South Dakota. That is a place in tough shape. It's the poorest county in the country with about 80-plus unemployment rate.
Oh, wow.
They have a per capita income of less than $3,500.
Golly. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to add something here to all the listeners that Todd does walk the walk and talk. I mean, he's not just saying this; he does it because I know for a fact that there was in the inspector, community. There's an inspector that is having some issues some breathing issues where they had to get this vest. I don't know all the technical stuff, but the vest to help them breathe, and the insurance wouldn't pay for it. And Todd stepped up and gave $700, if I'm not mistaken, right away without even thinking about it. So that's the type of guy that he is, and I know that for a fact. And it's inspiring, man. It's inspiring. It makes us all want to be a better person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, one of the things we all know, most of the people we listen to this know Ken Compton, and he does a lot of business coaching for me. And he told me to find my big why. Why did I want to grow my business? And I was stumped because I'm one of those lucky people that has everything he wants, everything he needs, every goal that I had set in my life I've pretty much achieved. I have my rental property. I have a summer home. I have all of those things. And It took me a while and what I found out, my big why to grow my business was it would give me the opportunity to help others.
That's awesome, brother. That's awesome. Well, Todd, switching gears, that's great. Now we're going to go to a not-so-great topic. You know as well as I do that if you do enough inspections, you're going to have an unhappy camper. How do you handle an unhappy camper? Do you have a process? What's that look like?
Well, knock on wood, in the 18-plus years that I've been doing this, I've avoided litigation.
Okay.
Mostly because we do the job the way we're supposed to. But like I said, most of what I learned about customer service, I learned from Market Basket. And the most important thing is, and this it also goes back to my favorite poem, is you can't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody calls and says they have an issue, the first thing I say is, why don't I come over your house and we can talk about it? And we can look at, is it in the report? Is it there? Is there a reason that what is the actual reason you're unhappy about? And although I have, over the course of many years, I've refunded inspection fees to dissatisfied clients, I would say it's less than 2 a year. Wow.
You got a pretty good track record, brother.
Well, we try to do the job the way it's supposed to be done.
Oh, good.
And you can't make everybody happy. But I think the biggest thing is setting expectations, too. At the beginning, a lot of home inspectors have gone away from the driveway speech or the table talk at the beginning of the inspection to just set the client's expectations about what you can actually do and what you can actually provide them and what you're actually not going to do.
Right. You know, I'm glad you brought that up. I need to get back to that. I think we've gone away from it a little bit, to be quite honest with you.
That's all part of the training program. 2 weeks prior to doing their first inspection, I sit down with a new inspector in the office, and we go over the entire process. We go over going over the inspection agreements, even if they've signed them online, going over those agreements and the additional agreements they should be signing above and beyond that, giving us permission to share the inspection with their agent, authorizing the use of their digital signature. All of those things help us avoid litigation.
I agree. And I think the driveway speech is important, too, because I think expectations have possibly unrealistically rose because of TV shows.
I agree.
There's some other factors, I think, that also make it, I think, society as a whole. But the driveway speech is probably more important than ever right now.
Absolutely. Just if you tell them you're not going to do it and they complain that you didn't do it, and then you show them the inspection agreement that, we told you we weren't going to look at this, and we sent you the inspection agreement 7 days before the inspection, so you had the opportunity to read it. It wasn't a shock to you, and you signed it online, and then we went over it again at the inspection so that you had a second chance to decide not to do it, that this wasn't what you wanted.
Yeah, I think, I love it. And, I don't know, I hear a lot of talk like millennials, the 8th place trophy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes, expectations are only going to get worse. Like nothing is ever anybody's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. I mean, buying a house is risk. I mean, you mitigate that risk by, getting an inspection, but, they can't see through walls, they can't predict the future, and they don't have a crystal ball. Obviously if there's something obvious that they should have seen, that's a different issue, but you and I and all the listeners know you get calls on stuff that were either A, they were actually in the report, they didn't take action on it, or B, were impossible to see, without tearing a wall out or something. And, I know there's a lot of talk like millennials, they expect, and I sort of fall into that a little bit too. But then again, I have young kids. I have 2 teenagers, and I know you have, like you said, your daughters play softball, and I know they're good kids, and I know a lot of their friends. They really are good kids. So even though I see stuff about millennials, and I too fall into that, but I also personally know some young kids, and I think that there are some good kids out there. Trust me.
Oh. My daughters are 22, 24, and soon to be 30. And they've got good heads on their shoulders. They know what the reality of life is, so I'm not all that worried. And most of their friends are the same way.
Yeah,
so
that's
I'm not worried about all the kids. There are some that are out there that don't have a clue.
Yeah, I'm totally.
They'll get one sooner or later. It just takes a little while to get
That's right. You'll inspect the house for one of them. Just know who you're dealing with. Well, Todd, we're going to get into some highs and lows, or times that you failed and times you succeeded. I always get that wrong. But first, let's take a pause for our sponsors.
Hey, home inspectors out there. I'm going to tell you a creative, inexpensive way to increase your business massively. Go to homeinspectionflyers.com and get the flyers. You get 5 flyers a month. You customize them to yourself. They're turnkey, they're creative, and it's $29 a month for 5 flyers. That's less than $6 a flyer. And they are done by yours truly, Preston Sandlin. And I am a creative guy, especially when I don't take my medication. But I come up with some crazy stuff. It works for my business. I went from 1 inspector to 7 inspectors with this strategy alone. So again, for $29.95, you get 5 flyers. I do 1 per week. I send them off to get copied on the internet. I can get them for about 7 cents a piece, and I put them out in the boxes when I do my candy run. Works fantastic. homeinspectionflyers.com. Thanks.
All right. Well, I am back here with Todd Whiting of is it Whiting Environmental Home Inspection?
Whiting Environmental Building Inspection.
And I know you service the Boston, Massachusetts area, but you said you have an office in Boston and an office in one of the outlying
the suburb of Boston.
Okay, cool. I think you're probably a Patriots fan and a Red Sox fan. That's probably a given, isn't it?
Of course it is.
I'm so jealous, man. You guys, I'll be honest, I don't like the Patriots because they beat us in the Super Bowl, but I absolutely respect them. I think, you guys are consistent. I mean, there's so many teams like us that will get good one year and then be terrible the next year. But, man, the Patriots have been consistently good for, what is it now, like 15 years now? I mean, they've
16 years. And that's what I like to tell people when they tell me they're angry that they win too much. I remind them of the fact that until Tom Brady took over as quarterback and Bill Belichick was the coach, the Patriots were basically a laughingstock of the National Football League. So.
Oh yeah, I remember when they would always get the number 1 draft picks. When I was in college.
Yeah, so do I.
I remember like I was at a bar in Chapel Hill, this girl that I was dating, and it was some guy that we were talking to that used to play football for Carolina, and the joke was like, oh yeah, he plays for the Patriots now. He get the hell beat out of him. I mean, this was back in the early '90s, I think. It was when this was, or yeah, it was like '91, '92, something like that. But yeah, they're good. And I remember when it was Drew Bledsoe, and when he got hurt, Tom Brady, going way back, it was like, oh well, they're done. Bledsoe's hurt. Who's this Brady kid? Wasn't he like a backup at Michigan? And you thought they were done. And little did you know that, man, that was the beginning of a dynasty. And, man, they're good. I'll have to go ahead.
It's been fun to watch. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I wish we could get it going down here with our Panthers. But, yeah, we went to the Super Bowl last year, and now we didn't even make the playoffs. It was embarrassing.
Well, it happens. You'll be back next year. I appreciate you talking with us, Todd. You've been dropping all kinds of gold nuggets. Tell us about a time when you failed. Take us there, and what did you learn from it? My biggest failure in life was I went to college when I was 17, and I majored in Budweiser. And I graduated early.
With honors. In Budweiser.
No, with disgrace.
Yeah.
About a year and a half later, I was given the advice that I seek my fortunes elsewhere.
Right.
And that was basically a reality check for me, and that's where I realized that I had to work hard.
Right.
And I found a job where I had some room for advancement, didn't need the college degree to do it, and that's when I started working at Market Basket, but in between I did some work installing rubber roofs, cleaning industrial boilers, doing building maintenance, things like that. But that's when I learned that life wasn't about just having fun, that there was more to it than just how many cans of Budweiser you could drink in a night and still wake up the next day.
So you got that reality check, and you had to have some tough jobs, I guess, before you got. And I tell my kids this: you got to have some bad jobs so you know when you got a good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
about 18 years ago, I retired and started working in a job that I love, and I haven't felt like I've been working since the day I started doing home inspections.
Awesome. Yeah, there's some quote out there. Do something you love, and you'll never work a day in your life, or something like that. On the other end of the spectrum, have you had a I made it moment, or I come a long way moment?
Well, that would be this year. It's just about a week ago when I was reviewing my goals from last year, looking at all of my targets that I wanted, that I had reached all of the targets that I had set out, that I had actually made the money that I had wanted to make, did all of the inspections that I had set a goal to do, that I had moved out of my basement into an actual office and a training center. That's when I said, you've made it. You've done what you set out to do.
Awesome. Well, Todd, do you have a favorite book you could recommend to our listeners? And what is it about the book that appeals to you?
Well, there are many books. I read a ton of books. I read about 3 books a week. Okay. I have one in the front seat of my truck for when I stop for lunch. I have a book up in my office. Generally, I have a book in the office that's about motivation and self-improvement, and then I'll have another book at home to read when I first get up in the morning and have my breakfast. So I'm reading a lot. But I have two really good books for self-improvement. The first one I ever read, but it really started organizing my thoughts, was Super Self.
Okay.
Don't ask me who the author is. I don't remember. But that really started me focusing on setting goals. But the book that had the biggest change in the way I looked at things was Gary Keller's book, The One Thing.
Oh, yeah.
I know that there's a whole training program about that book, and I've never taken the training program and probably never will. But it really made me understand how to focus. Years ago, I used to market everything: commercial inspections, commercial mold inspections, residential mold inspections, radon testing, everything. And didn't have much luck with anything. But after I read The One Thing and I started focusing on my one thing, which is selling home inspections, everything started to grow. Home inspections grew because I was doing more home inspections, I was doing more radon testing, I was doing more mold testing, because I had an increased presence for my inspection company online. Companies that were looking for commercial inspectors found me. So my commercial inspection presence went up because I was able to get focused on the smallest common denominator, not the biggest.
Awesome. Good advice. Todd, I'm going to make this question. I actually forgot to ask it, but it's the same question. Let's say that I'm a buyer or real estate agent in your market. There are other home inspectors in your market. Why should I hire you? Is there something you do that others don't?
Well, one of the reasons people should hire us is we use a fairly unique radon testing system. We use e-perm canisters. A lot of companies in this area use liquid scintillation devices. They set the devices up, walk away, and never come back. The agent or the client picks the device up and pops it in the mail.
Okay.
And what I like about the e-perms, and this actually answers one of your other questions too, I think, but what I like about those, unlike the continuous monitor, there's always two devices.
Okay, so you can check one.
It's taking the best of the liquid scintillation device, that it's always a duplicate test, coupling it with the best of the continuous monitor, which is that you can get results the day you pick up the test.
Awesome. Good stuff.
The other reason they should use us is, while we may not be the cheapest home inspection company that's out there, we provide the greatest value. We're providing a report that many of our competitors are charging $700, $800 for, and we start at $449 for our smallest property. There are companies that are out there that you can get $375 with everything.
Wow. Yeah, we call those, Cheap Charlies?
Cheap Charlies. $375, radon, mold, wood-destroying insects, whatever you want. I just want to do the job, so I'll charge very little for it.
I don't ever talk bad about anybody because I know that, but I always say, ask how long that person's been in business. And the underlying thing is they don't have a sustainable model to begin with, so they can't be. They can't do that forever, because when they run into the cost and everything, they just can't. It's not a sustainable model.
No, it's not, and they're looking at doing it totally on volume, so they're not dedicating the time to the inspection they're working on.
Right, I totally agree. Well, Todd, I know we talked about changes that you've seen, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but you do have experience in this business, and you do have a good head on your shoulders. So, what would you imagine that how this business might change in the future? How do you think it'll change 10, 15 years from now?
Well, right now we're in a disclosure business. We're in a due diligence business. We're providing due diligence for our buyers.
Right.
And that's a wonderful thing for us, because if one person doesn't like our report, they move on and they look at another house. We get that inspection. And they may use us again and again. But that's due diligence really isn't the way it's going to go. I think in the next 10 years, and I see a push for it now in many of the companies, that we're going to go into a disclosure business, and instead of working for the buyer, we're going to be working for the seller. And we're going to be doing their disclosure for the conditions of the home. We're going to be doing the inspections before they list the home. I can see many of our more liberal states like Massachusetts actually putting the requirement on the seller to do the home inspection prior to listing the home. Right now in Massachusetts, the seller is required to do a septic system inspection before listing the home. So I can see it going in that direction over time. I don't know if it's going to happen immediately, but I know that there's a lot of value for a seller that they don't see in having the inspection done before they list the home.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I could totally see that. I could totally see that. That's good stuff. Well, Todd, have you ever been thrown under the bus by a contractor? I know you have. Everybody has. How do you handle it? Do you have any ideas for our listeners out there how they could, I don't think you can stop it, but at least control it to a degree?
I will give you a specific instance where I was inspecting a new construction home right after 2000. It was about 2010. And did the inspection. It was actually the contractor that was building the home that threw me under the bus.
Ooh.
And because we're not doing code compliance, but
sure.
There was no outlet by the outdoor AC equipment. There was a big crack in the foundation, and I called those out in the report. And the contractor proceeded to tell the buyer's agent and the buyer that your home inspector is an idiot. Those are not required. And we sealed the outside of the foundation after we poured it.
My blood is starting to boil because I know I get that feeling. So how did you respond?
So I went online to the code and pulled out the requirement for the outside outlet. And then we sat down with the contractor and I asked him, do you know if that crack happened before you sealed the outside of the foundation?
Nice.
And what did you seal the outside with? Black asphalt? And don't think that that's going to split over time. If you just had a company that specializes in injecting epoxy into foundation cracks, it's not going to break your bank. It's only going to be a very small amount of money because I can't say anything at all about price.
Sure.
But generally speaking, we don't talk about code, but when a contractor calls me an idiot, I don't have a problem pulling out and citing the code.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know those home inspectors get their license on the back of a match cover.
Absolutely. And then you'll always have the contractor that says, oh, your home inspector should have caught this. You know, they pull apart a wall in a garage, and in the wall framing in the garage, there's some wood-destroying insect damage, and your home inspector should have caught this.
Oh, yeah. That guy on TV would have found it.
Yeah, because he would have pulled the wall down with your permission, but, oh, wait, you don't own the home.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that's actually a remodeling show disguised as a home. They were going to remodel anyway. Anyway, I'm not going to say too much. But
so at the end of the day, once again, those sorts of things go back to the disclosure when it's a third party. And the other thing that's great is William Troutman from Certainty Home Inspections provided me with a form for my reports called What to Do When Things Go Wrong.
Right.
And it talks about all those things.
Awesome. Yeah, I interviewed William, for all the listeners. I think he's one of the early interviews, but William's great.
Yes, he is. And one of the great things about him is he's willing to share.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Todd, here's another, sort of along the same question. You know, you talked about, the guy who gets up there. Your home inspector should have found this. Sort of a related question. I don't know if you guys have them in Boston. We have them here, but I'm sure you probably do because they're everywhere. the ones who use fear to try to sell, contractors that use fear, and the big ones to me are the mold or, the cracked heat exchanger that, has a crack that's like a Phillips head screwdriver. But, they use fear to try to sell something, in my mind, at times that people don't need, and then they throw the home inspector under the bus in the process. Do you have those guys up there? And I don't even really know what I'm asking, just kind of your opinion on that, or how do you handle those? I think there's some of these companies that want to seal every crawl space, whether it needs it or not, and use fear to do it. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'll let you talk.
There's always those types of people that their motivating factor is money.
Right.
So when it's about the money, you have some companies, my biggest bugaboo is mold remediation companies that offer a free mold inspection.
Right. How many times do they come out there and say, oh, it's fine?
Yeah.
Never.
Unless there's absolutely nothing they can generate.
Right.
But those sorts of companies, I try to educate real estate agents. I try to educate my clients what the real issue is. That we'll go into a home and we'll see that there's some nice black staining up in the attic. Well, what's really going on here? What's really the problem? You may have some mold growth up here, but what do you really need to take care of?
Yeah, that's good
and
stuff.
So when we talk to them about those sorts of things, then when they talk to the contractor, they have a pretty good feel of what they're going to. And belonging to many networking groups and the Chamber of Commerce, I've developed relationships with like-minded people.
That's a good idea.
I don't refer a lot of contractors, but the ones that I do, I've developed not necessarily just a business relationship with them, but I try to learn what drives them, what makes them do what they're doing.
Right.
And if there are some contractors that will call me in to do something, and I'll tell them no. I have no interest in working with you because you're not going to do what I tell you to do anyway.
Right. Yeah, and if they're just motivated by the money only, like you referred to earlier, that's the problem.
Why are you doing what you're doing?
Right. I mean, to me, and I'm sure it's that way for you. I mean, I love what I do, but I also love being part of, the person's American dream. I mean, to own a home. But we want to make sure. I also feel good when, like this person, bought this house and it was all they could do to afford it, which is great. Mm-hmm. They bought a house, but if it weren't for you, they would have gotten a rotten furnace that they would have had to immediately fork up another $5,000 or something, and because of you, they got that fixed or replaced early on. That's a good feeling, man. That's a good feeling.
If I can just talk about you for a little bit, one of the things that's always impressed me about you and your company is you'll look at things like a loose doorknob or something like that, and rather than call out a loose doorknob in the report, if you can take your screwdriver and tighten the screws, you do it.
Yeah. It's just easier.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Right. Yeah, I totally. Thank you for that, Todd. Yeah, we do this thing called fix the small stuff, and basically the rule of thumb is if we can fix it in 5 minutes or less with little to no cost, just do it. Just fix it. It's the right thing to do, and it makes everybody's life easier.
I'll keep a variety of electrical box screws in my toolbox. And if it's missing screws or it has the wrong screws in it, hopefully I have the right screws to put in.
Absolutely. Yeah, we carry cover plates and stuff. And
yeah.
I say, you know what? It might not match. It may be white when it's supposed to be alabaster or vice versa. But,
but it's covered.
Yeah, it's covered. It's better than a child sticking a paperclip in there, which I did when I was a child. It's not fun.
I've done that.
Yeah, you find out real quick.
Yeah.
And thanks a lot. Well, I want to ask your opinion on something else, and I might eventually phase this question out, Todd, because I started doing this 2 years ago, and to me at that point it was a bigger problem, but I think it's gotten a lot better, and that's the ego chest thumping on some of the forums. Like, you know, somebody would ask a question and then like somebody would beat them up or make them feel like an idiot but I think they have gotten a lot better. I don't know if you've seen any of this, you know, home inspector
an attempt on it. But yes, I view but rarely participate with many of them on Facebook, LinkedIn. There's another home inspector here in Massachusetts that spends a lot of time degrading other inspectors and denigrating them and just trying to show that he's the most intelligent person in the state of Massachusetts. And I just find that totally repulsive. People that are participating on those boards are trying to improve themselves. They're trying to gather knowledge a lot of the time. Sometimes it's just somebody trying to say, hey, look what I found, and I bet you didn't.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I always tell guys, like, look, if you want to be a professional, get paid like a professional, treated like a professional, act like a professional. Do you see doctors on forums denigrating other doctors? I mean, come on.
And there are some good forums out there. There are some good stuff. I know we'll probably talk about it later, but there's a lot of good places to go.
Yeah, there are.
And you can participate just on Internachi. Is a great site.
Yeah,
so
well,
get what you need.
Yeah, and the better forums, I think, have some, I don't know if you call them senior people or the people been on there a while that, you know, kind of, I guess sort of the mayor or whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, you know, if they're level-headed or they have an administrator and, you know, they just won't tolerate,
right.
you know, somebody being disrespectful, you know, get them out of there, man. I mean, it's just, you know, I have a saying that I go by, my family and my company, and it goes like this: it's okay to disagree, but it's not okay to disrespect.
Right.
And the problem is sometimes one can morph into the other, and that's when you got to draw the line and just say, you know what, we're going to have to agree to disagree on that, and that's fine.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
But once again, it's something we talked about earlier. It's everywhere in life. It's not just on home inspection forums. It's just the way people talk to each other that have differing opinions.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we may not have the same political or whatever, and that's okay. That's fine. It's good that there isn't. Yeah, it's good that there isn't one single opinion, but let's just agree to disagree. And hey, man, that don't mean we can't be friends. I mean, you know.
If you agree with everybody on everything, what are you ever going to talk about?
Exactly. Well, Todd, now remember this is a G-rated show. I told iTunes when I asked this question. What is the wildest, craziest, or weirdest thing you've ever found on a home inspection or one of your guys?
It wasn't really on a home inspection. It was on a mold inspection.
Okay.
And I was down in a crawl space in the house looking for the moisture source, and I found a petrified cat.
Oh.
And when I found it, I was talking to the son the mother had passed away, and he said, my mother lost her cat 3 years ago. She heard him, but she couldn't find him.
Oh. You know, I probably just wouldn't say anything. I don't want to say anything. I had another Butch Upton actually is in my. He had something similar in an attic, and he talked to the lady. Said, "Yeah, I lost my cat a couple of years ago." He said, "I just didn't have the heart to tell her."
Well, if it was the mother, I wouldn't have said anything. It was the son who lived next door. He thought it was funny.
Oh wow! I hear you. Well, Todd, do you have a training or internet or marketing resource you'd be willing to share with other people, something that you found that's helpful?
I would love to share the Savvy Inspector.
Okay.
I started with them. I originally started with them back in 2008, but I didn't implement.
Okay.
But in 2013, Ken was advertising to his members a program to help you go from a one-man shop to a multi-inspector firm. I signed up for that with my membership, and the rest has been just fantastic. There's so many resources that they provide. There's so many places you can go and get continuing education for your business.
Right.
You can go to Internachi. We actually have schools here in Massachusetts, but there are very few sites that teach you how to run your business and how to be a businessman. And that's what I get from the Savvy Inspector site, is how to run my business. I get direct coaching. They have their own forums where their members can interact, and the blessing about those forums is there is none of the ego. Everybody shares. So it's a fantastic site.
Awesome. Well, Todd, what is the best part of your job and why, and what's the worst part of your job and why?
The best part of my job is I'm the boss, and I'm the boss of everyone.
That's probably the worst part.
It's the only place in my life where I'm the boss.
Isn't that the truth? Because you got daughters.
I've got daughters, I got a wife, I've got a mother, and I'm not the boss anywhere there. But here, I'm the boss. And here, the best part about my job is I get to decide how we're going to do the things that we're going to do, the way we're going to present ourselves, the information that we're going to provide, how we're going to deal with add-on inspections. If it's something that somebody really doesn't need or there's no financial benefit to them for us doing radon, then we'll say, yes, you ordered it, but we're going to refund your money because it's better to do it this way.
Right.
So I get to do that. The worst part about my job, it's really difficult because there's not very much that I don't like about my job.
Mm-hmm.
But the worst part is public speaking.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
But remember, the world is not served by
part.
You being small, or playing small, I guess.
It's not necessarily bad, but it's the hardest part for me. It's the thing that if I can find a way to do it differently, I do, but I've tried most of those in the past 18 years, and they don't work, so I'm back to doing the old-fashioned things, which is put my face in front of other people's faces and talk to them. You once told me it's about getting in front of the eyeballs.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you two other things that I think about, too. And believe it or not, I'm scared to get in front of people, too. I mean, I even tell my wife that. She doesn't think I am. I was like, oh, yeah, I get that nervousness. I mean, everybody does. I said, but, I think about it in two ways. One thing is, whatever it is, it's going to be over in, 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. Whatever it is, however bad it is, it's going to be over in an hour. So that calms me down, or however long I speak. And then second of all, you're here to a group of realtors to talk about home inspection. You're the most qualified person in the room. I mean, you know the most about this subject. I mean, it would be different if you were there, they asked you to speak about, rocket science or something, or about real estate, something that you are the most knowledgeable person on that subject in the room. You know what I mean? So, anyway. Well, Todd, I have just three more questions. If you had to move to a brand new town, equal or, about equal to the same size of the Boston area, room and board taken care of, you still had all your equipment, training, everything was the same. You just didn't know anybody. And you had $5,000 to start marketing. What would you do in that first week?
Do I still have all of my online programs, access to send out cards and all of those things?
Yep.
Okay. Then the very first thing I would do is I would go to my send out cards and I would set up a campaign to all of the top producing companies that are out there.
Okay.
Well, not all of them, but I would select probably about 5 offices that looked like they could provide for me, and I'd start a drip campaign for them. I would purchase a batch of candy houses and a batch of candy, and about 2 weeks after the first card was delivered, I'd start showing up at the offices and seeing if they wanted candy. Because you've got pants to get in front of the eyeballs, I've got candy.
Whatever you can do to
in the offices.
Occupy that cerebral cortex for a few seconds.
And it's a question that I can say it's not that I moved to a new community, but I have an inspector that lives about an hour and 15 minutes away from here, down on Cape Cod.
Okay.
That's a totally different market than here. But that is exactly the approach I started back in September with them. I sent out a 5-card drip campaign, and about the third card that they received, a bunch of the office managers from down there gave me a call saying that some of the agents were just throwing the cards out and maybe you should slow down the cards. And that sounds somewhat like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the office manager from these offices on the line.
That's right. I
spent about a half an hour talking to them, got permission to go down, put the candy houses in, went in, met the managers. Since that time, I've done about a half dozen office presentations down in those offices. We're starting to make inroads with the new agents. We're getting about 1 to 2 inspections a week out of that territory. We're not getting any inspections right now. It's just after Christmas, and nobody's interested in doing anything right now. But next week it picks back up. But we're getting a great response down there.
Awesome. And that all came from the send-out cards.
Started with the send-out cards. And I started with 3 offices, and because of the 3, I got contacted by 2 other affiliated offices from one of the offices that I was going to, so I wound up in 5 offices down in Cape Cod.
Awesome. Well, Todd, we're almost finished here, and I appreciate all your time. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't?
Well, I just want to back up one question that we didn't answer, but is there anything I'm working on right now
sorry, I don't know how to
jacked up and excited about?
Yeah.
The answer to that is yes. I'm actually in the process of hiring an outside marketing person, someone to take part of that off of my table, someone to go out. You know Kayla.
Yep, I do.
And I'm going to be hiring somebody to do that role for me. Not that I won't continue in what I'm doing, but in terms of time, I don't have the time to train and to teach inspectors to be able to do the outside marketing as well. So I have to have somebody doing that for me.
Awesome. I may want to compare notes with you because I'm in that same boat. I do it all myself, but I can't be. I've got to take a little bit of that off my table as well.
I just, with the help of Ken, created a job listing for a friendly outdoor marketing representative.
Cool. We'll compare notes on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that with you.
Awesome. Well, Todd, is there any questions you'd like to ask me before we? I know you've got to get on with your day.
Well, I'm going to ask you that same 24. What are you working on right now that has you excited?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. I'm going to revamp my 5-star package, where we do everything. We kind of have like a thing where we do the thermal imaging, the radon, and all that. Mm-hmm. And I had it before, but we kind of, about 3 years ago, it was a big deal, and we sold it, and we sort of let it. I mean, it's still on our website and all, but we don't push it, and we have it. I'm going to revamp it and add and take away some things and just make it I'm kind of excited because I think we're going to reintroduce it, new and improved type sort of thing.
And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm doing the same thing. I'm glad you mentioned that because I am working on putting in place a 5-star package, and I'm actually looking at changing call centers. I've been with the same call center since 2001, but I need a company that will upsell better.
Right. That's
so I'm looking at the one that many of my inspector friends are using and maybe making the switch for the start of February.
Awesome.
It would be nice to increase the dollars per inspection without having to increase the number of inspections.
That's right, because that's the only two ways to increase revenue is either the number of inspections or dollar, and I say value per inspection. Mm-hmm. And the second one is less liability, because the more inspections you do, you're increasing your liability. So right. It's more, I think, better to give more value and more cost, price per inspection.
Absolutely.
Well, Todd, you've been awesome. You've dropped all kinds of gold nuggets. I know the listeners have benefited. Where can they go and give you some likes on Facebook? Because I think that helps you out a little bit with SEO. Is there a Facebook page and a normal
Whiting Environmental Facebook page? I don't have the URL in front of me, but they can also go to my website, www.whitingenvironmental.com, and there's a testimonial page. If they want to say thank you for the information I've given them today, there's a place there where they can do it.
Awesome.
They can go on LinkedIn. I have a presence on LinkedIn, just Todd Whiting. And Todd is spelt with one D if you're going for LinkedIn, not two. I know that most people are two, but I'm just different. What can I do?
I hear you. Well, Todd, you've been awesome, brother. And
I will
probably see you at a conference soon, or I might get with you about how the marketing person works out, because I'm in that same bucket.
Well, I'm just a phone call away.
All right, brother. Thank you for your time this morning.
Yep. Take care, Preston.
All right, Todd. See you.
Yep. Bye.
Guys, I want to talk to you about a way that you can make more money and less liability. Actually, no liability. InspectNewHomes.com. InspectNewHomes.com. What happened is one of the largest builders in our market came to us and wanted us to do all the pre-inspections on all of their new homes. But they didn't want us to use just our normal reporting software. They wanted a system set up specifically for a builder so that they could do quality control on their subs, and they could also advertise that all their homes were inspected by a third party. So we came up with this software, this system, a website, a whole turnkey thing where you can take this and take it to your builder and show them how you can save them time, save them money, reduce the adversarial relationship. And it's a whole new market. You will not have to compete with other home inspectors for this market, and it reduces the adversarial relationship with the builder, and best of all, there's no liability. So I'm telling you, it is great. It's phenomenal. I'd love to tell you the amount of money we've made with this system, a lot, but you're welcome to check it out, InspectNewHomes.com, or on the Successful Home Inspector podcast, you can, there's a tab on there as well. All right, if you would like to make some more money with almost no liability, check out InspectNewHomes.com.
Thanks for checking out the Successful Home Inspector podcast. You can find show links at thesuccessfulhomeinspector.com. Check out the website for special offers, information, and other resources. Thanks again for listening to the Successful Home Inspector podcast, and remember to check back for new episodes. The Successful Home Inspector podcast is brought to you by Preston Sandlin and Home Inspection Carolina.